Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Reel Film Podcast.
I'm Pete Wright, and I'm so excited about tonight, Andy, because we get to prove to our guests that the characters in this movie actually speak.
That's right. Today we're talking about Minute 97, which begins with Tony's thoughts on Fury's Fifing and ends with Selvig busy on the top of Stark Tower. Back on the show from a few weeks ago, we have playwright Dean O'Carroll. Hello, Dean.
Hey, I'm back. I'm very glad to be back. I'm very glad to be as a playwright back for the episode where suddenly Captain America and Iron Man start talking about show business. I'm glad I was able to nab this moment because it's right up my alley. Yeah,
that's right. Well, I was going to ask: is there a particular reason you picked this minute? Is it because of this conversation?
Yeah, this is absolutely why. As I was looking at the ones that were available when I was picking, I came across this one. Like, well, I have to call dibs on this one. It's the one where suddenly it becomes about theater, and if I'm going to be the representative of the drama for this season, I should be. Yeah, and it's funny. I usually try to save my plugs in talking about my plays for the end of these episodes, but when I was writing my play that parodies this movie, I don't think I had watched the movie super recently. I knew it well enough to feel like I could hit the beats and so on. But it's for the equivalent moment of this, where they're trying to figure out where Loki in my play is going to be making his last stand. They say, like, well, he craves theatricality and so, like, oh, he'll be in Times Square. Gang, we're going to Broadway, and so the finale takes place in New York. And at one point, Loki tells the Hikawi army to destroy the city, except for the Richard Rodgers Theater, because I haven't seen Hamilton yet. So I was very excited to get to talk about this moment.
I bet you loved seeing the musical version of all of this in the Hawkeye show, huh?
I hated it.
Oh, no! Okay.
I love almost every single thing about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Even the movies, the lesser ones, Thor 2 and so on, I still have great fondness for. Though the things that I can actually say I hate is like 2 episodes of What If and Rogers the Musical, and I'll tell you why. For the songs for WandaVision, all the theme songs, they went to such measures, and they got the folks who wrote Frozen and
right.
To do these songs, and they get these note perfect parodies that show how much they love TV theme songs, which are cheesy and usually pretty dumb, but clearly they have great love and fondness for them to recreate them so beautifully. And then what the song and the number is like, you've never seen a Broadway show in your life. This is what you think Broadway is because you've decided at some point that you don't like theater. This is like something out of a bad Simpsons spec script. I can't. I hate. I was looking forward to it in the trailer. I thought, this is so cool. I remember when there's supposed to be a Captain America musical, and there was an ad for it in Marvel Comics. And it never happened. But I was so looking forward to it, and then it was just I really couldn't stand it. Yes, so you won't often hear me going on. I don't like to yuck other people's yums, but that is something that really bugged me, and it drives me crazy that they're actually putting it in Disneyland now.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear that. No.
Yeah, apparently it's good. They're going to do some degree of that as a real live show in Disney parks.
Oh my god,
coming soon. Yep.
I'm not going to say it's not a one-note joke. Like it is, to me, it's a one-note joke. I'm not repulsed by it, but it doesn't deserve a theme park adaptation. Not even a little bit.
Well, it's funny because the thing that I thought it was fun. I enjoyed what they did with it. But the thing where my head went is like, how did the people who wrote this musical know about all of these little beats that happen? Like, how does
right.
anybody in society know Captain America ever said, I could do this all day? Like, it's just like, it's a line that he said to a villain at some point, but no one else was there. I mean, does he go around saying that to like everybody that he meets? Like when he's tipping, he's like, here's some extra. I could do this all day. Like, is
when
it just
when he signs autographs, it's
right.
I could do this all day. Of
like,
course.
People just like, God, will he ever stop saying that?
Will he stop doing this all day?
I mean, we have learned that apparently the average civilian seems to know blow for blow what happens in the Battle of Avengers compound from Endgame, probably because Scott Lang wrote it in great explicit detail in his book,
Yeah.
and that's why they're able to. That's why people who weren't there seem to know exactly what happened. But yeah, this one would not have had an equivalent.
Right.
I like to call that diegetic rumors, right? Like it's just on the wind.
That's right. Yep. Exactly. Well, let's jump into this minute a little bit. We're starting this minute where it's kind of at the end of the focus of our conversation, really kind of about Coulson's death, and we're at this point where we're still kind of getting this reaction from Tony about, Steve had just asked him, have you ever had a soldier that you're with die? And Tony says, we're not soldiers. And then right at the start of this minute, he comes in, I'm not marching to Fury's fife. And this is kind of the shift of going out of reacting to everything that Coulson kind of brought to the table, as far as the way that they're kind of brought them together and everything, of course, with the lie of the bloody trading cards and all that sort of stuff. But we kind of move past all of this and really start trying to figure out, okay, he died for a reason. We need to figure this out so that we can stop Loki. What I think is interesting about this conversation is it starts taking two directions. We have Steve, who is just like the strategist, who is like, okay, let's focus on this. We got to figure out what this power source is that Loki is going to use. So let's figure that out. And then Tony still hasn't quite let everything with Coulson goes, and he looks at this blood stain on the wall, and he says he made it personal. And this kind of starts this bifurcated conversation about power source versus Loki's motivations. And what I think is so interesting, and this is, I like the way that this scene is crafted, and I'd love to get the thoughts from the two of you, because it's really this two angles that really kind of come together and are woven together in their conversation as to this power source, but also the entire point of what Loki's reasonings are.
The Cap and Iron Man dynamic throughout, the whole first three phases, winds up being so key and so important, and I love these two actors so much, and so and seeing them forming this relationship and being the right kind of give and take that the other one, each of them needs is so great to see, because from here on, sort of the two characters' arc is Steve becoming more like Tony and Tony becoming more like Steve. That early in this movie, Steve says, we need a plan of attack, and Tony says, I have a plan, attack. And then jump forward to Infinity War, and he's the one who has to come up with the plan when he and the Guardians and Spider-Man are going to take on Thanos themselves. He has to be Cap in that situation. But that's not exactly what you're asking about. The specifics of cracking Loki and analyzing him. Yeah, Steve is a good judge of character, and really the only time he really gets something wrong is Tony. That he misjudges Tony, because Tony deliberately tries to make people get things wrong. But he wears emotional armor in addition to other armor. Yeah, so he's right on, but he then did need Tony's insight of he's trying to make it personal. It was always personal with Thor for him, but he needed that to be for the case for the rest of us too.
I think one of the things that appeals to me about this sequence is that, with the exception of the conversation in the lab that gets intense as a result of Scepter, whatever. This is the first time I think we have Cap and Tony conversing in a way that exchanges information and tries to move things forward. It transcends banter. We have a lot of banter between the two of them. And, I think it's one of the things that Whedon is really great at is banter and playful, sarcastic, whatever form of sort of informal banter, one-upmanship. It was great writing. But this is two people who now are coming together on and trying to find the same page and get on it. And we get a solid minute of them just talking and eventually talking to each other. Those moments are kind of few and far between in this movie. And so I just want to level some appreciation for it. This slows down and lets two people talk to each other and move things forward at the same time.
And to get back to the joke I made originally on, I love that they're coming to the other point is they start using these show business metaphors.
Yes.
They start talking about, opening night, and I caught his preview. And, like, why would they? And they realized, well, because Cap was a chorus boy for a few months before he got to be a super soldier. And clearly Tony has some love of theatricality. He put on the Stark Expo and, was, showing up with dancing girls and so on. He at least appreciates the value of it. So like, oh yeah, I mean, it's not what either truly wants to be, but it's something that they sort of learned about coincidentally.
And he almost goes to using a new nickname. It's not quite falling into the nickname, so we're not going to add it to the nickname tracker. But he does say that Loki's a full tilt diva, which,
he's not calling him full tilt diva.
He's not saying.
He's describing him as.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I see that nuance.
But yeah, so here's a question though that I have in the scope of figuring all of this out. Can you track Tony's logic as far as the way that he's kind of walking from he made it personal to he wants a monument built to the skies with his name plastered on it?
No.
Like, okay, because I was like, is there something in here that I'm not clicking with? Is the way that he's putting this puzzle piece together?
Yeah, and the fact that it cuts to Stark Tower is like, that is a non-linear leap for me. And maybe it's perfect for Tony, but it's hard to stop and watch this 1 minute at a time and not feel a little bit broken. That's a bit of logic that doesn't hold for me.
Yeah, it's like there's point B and there's point D, but C is missing somehow. That like
right.
Okay, yes, he's making it personal, and you have reason to believe that. And making it personal is one of the reasons why he wants to use Stark Tower. That's also because it's the power source that he needs. Yeah, but you were actually going off in a different direction before you sort of veered back to this.
Dean, I think that's a really important point, because this is this demonstrates to me the expertise of writing dialogue in a way that sounds natural and human, so you understand the how very well, and then we get to what does the dialogue do to move the plot forward in a way that's logical. So this demonstrates here they're not entirely sure the why, and so finding a great sequence. Particularly, I think in these movies where we have great dialogue that understands the why and the how, it can be a little fiddly. It can be a little hard to find. There's a lot of great dopamine writing, that's why these movies are what they are: big, bombastic, pixel fests. And maybe you could say that Thor was trying to preemptively transcend what these big superhero movies were bound to become, but arguably didn't.
What's interesting about the dialogue here that Tony has, or what Tony is starting to piece together, I mean, this is a conversation we've had a lot over the course of this, the last, half hour or so of this film, because from the point that Loki makes the decision in Stuttgart, or he and Clint have put this plan together, it says, yes, you're going to go to Stuttgart, create this scene so that I can steal this iridium, but you're going to get caught and you're going to go onto the helicarrier. And we've been kind of debating, like, why is this part of the plan? Like, what is Loki's plan? Like, once he gets here, is it just to release the Hulk? Why? What's the goal? And is it to get the Scepter on board so that, it seems like they want to get the Scepter on board so that Barton can arrive there. But again, it seems like once Barton's here, the only point is to get Loki off of it. And I guess, he's trying to take the helicarrier down and stuff. So there's an element of finding the helicarrier, bring it down. He has that line when he's talking to Coulson, your heroes are divided and your flying fortress is falling from the sky. So I guess that is kind of it. And this is kind of what his point here is. Like, Loki's point was to hit us where we live, divide and conquer. He wants, but then it kind of shifts the direction of his motivations here. It's not just about hitting us where we live. It's that he wants to be seen doing it. And so there's like so much going on in the conversation here. I feel like I want to say, oh yeah, it's all super logical. But I think that, as you were saying, the writers needed to just kind of get through this, and they found a way to do it with a particular character when when Robert Downey Jr. is talking and he's excited about making this point, and then we get to cut, like he figures it out, we figure it out, oh my God, it's Stark Tower, and we see Erik Selvig on the top of it, then, we're just right there with it. But when you really do stop and think about it, it's like there's so little logic in all of this that I just really have to take a lot of leaps to kind of put all this together.
I found a screenplay online for this. I think it's just a transcript. And the line that Tony said, that Tony says, I think the line is, divide and conquer is great, but he knows he has to take us out to win. Whoever transcribed this had written it as, he has to conquer his greed, but he knows he has to take us out to win, right? So it's like, okay, you just heard it wrong. But I initially heard it as divide and conquer, that's his creed. Which would kind of work. But yes,
that also kind of works.
That certainly covers it.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think this is what it pokes at is something that we've been talking about for the last many minutes, which is this whole idea of Loki, what he brandishes, like what he wears most prominently on his sleeve is his hubris. And so we get Tony coming to that realization, right, that he connects it to the gleaming tower with his name emblazoned on it, and then we cut to the Stark Tower. That's the point of weakness for me in this bit of exchange.
It is an interesting beat, though, because there is this element where it does make you think, is Tony seeing some of himself in Loki in the way that... Because, Tony,
that's a good point.
All of the stuff Tony is saying is kind of him, too. I mean, it is his own tower that, in fact, is the final place for all this.
An arrogant man with father issues, absolutely, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's an interesting bit. I feel like I end up really enjoying the conversation at the start of this minute, and by the time they're like Tony's putting all the puzzle pieces together, I end up really struggling with so much of the logic, and I don't want to have to think about the logic because I have so many issues with it. But the curse of the format, I guess.
For sure.
But we do end up seeing Erik busy at the top of Stark Tower. I did have questions. I mean, last time we saw him, he was in the back of a vehicle driving, through a tunnel. It seemed like he was probably crossing into Manhattan at that particular point in time. I guess I was just wondering, so how did they... he had a few people in the vehicle with him. We only saw the one vehicle driving. I guess that there must have been some other men of Loki's. I mean, I'm assuming Stark Tower is not empty. I know it's, he just got it up and running, but I mean, it's Tony Stark. I would imagine that there's some level of security that he has here, right?
Yeah, if the top 3 floors are all, labs, as he says, then there's got to be a lot of expensive equipment that needs guarding.
But the bottom, 50 floors are florists and real estate agents and maybe some accountants.
Yeah.
Well, it's still under construction, so I think the vast majority of the building is still unoccupied, really. It's just him and his penthouse up at the top. But still, it does make me wonder, how do Loki's men, all these mercenaries, how do they get past security? And then the other question is, why is Erik up here alone? Even in the vehicle, we've always seen somebody else there, kind of, even if they're just standing there as an extra, somebody's always nearby just to kind of help if he needs it. And this is the first time we're really seeing him, nope, I'm going to do this all by myself.
Also, you have to wonder, did they carry all of the equipment up from the bottom, or did they bring it in by helicopter? Now, presumably, people are used to seeing things being helicoptered into to Stark Tower all the time, so it wouldn't be unusual. But yes, yeah.
That's a great question. This is a fairly big piece of machinery that Selvig has. It's fully assembled. And as we know, this story, we've talked about it. This is all taking place over the course of a week. And when we see this, this is literally the same, the morning of them having been driving in. So it's not like they've had much time. So they really kind of, either they assembled it incredibly quickly, and maybe that's why we see nobody, because they're all on break right now, or they flew it up here. That's a great point, is that they drove it into New York, loaded it onto a helicopter, and then brought it up here.
I'd like to see that. There's something about it that to me actually prefers a Marvel one-shot of just them negotiating the elevators. I would tune in for that.
I'm suddenly thinking of the scene in Friends where they're carrying the couch up the stairs and just all these anti-shield thugs. Pivot.
Pivot. Skarsgård. Pivot! Yeah.
The more I look at this, the more I think that they had to fly this thing up here because there's no way to even get to the top of this. Like when you cut to, like we get the close, or not the close up, but the kind of a medium shot of Erik at the top. And then we cut to a much wider shot and we kind of see the whole cityscape, see Stark Tower and all that stuff. There is not a single, like there's not a door entrance in here that would lead to like a stairwell or an elevator or anything. It is just the gravel rooftop and there's no way to get up here. So it would have to have been brought up by a copter.
Yeah. I remember when I visited Monticello years ago, which is, a beautiful tour. And I remember one point in the rooms, like there's lots of narrow hallways and tiny doors. And I asked the tour guide, like, so all of the furniture stuff in here, did it have to be assembled in the rooms? They said, oh yeah, you couldn't carry this stuff up. They had, so like, wow, Thomas Jefferson, he invented the dumbwaiter and also IKEA.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, we end this minute cutting very briefly into the sick bay. We'll talk about that in tomorrow's minute with you, Dean, as we will be chatting about the return of Hawkeye to the story.
All right.
So that's it for today. Let's wrap today's minute up. Dean, thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, always so glad. This has been really fun. I'm sad I've only got one episode left to go.
It goes quick sometimes, for sure.
Have you written anything new in the last 15 minutes?
In the last 15 minutes? Well, no, but I'll tell you more about... so we haven't gotten to talk much about my version of Cap or Iron Man yet. Both my versions in my Play Marvelous Squad, available for production by your local high school or middle school drama club. Both those characters are female in mine. I do that a lot. I will often change male characters to female, mostly for practical reasons. More girls show up to auditions for these plays than boys, so you make sense.
Yeah.
So
sure.
my Tonya Sparks is also known as Ironica, and Ironica, yeah, which works on two levels. And Dottie Dash, which is sort of a plan like Roger is like Roger and dots and dashes, is Cinderella Liberty. Which is she speaks with a very exaggerated 40s patois, so I use lots of 40s slang for her to really play up the person out of time, and so those were both really fun to write. Anything else I want to say about those? So check those out, and if you know drama kids, let them know if they exist.
Fantastic. Well, again, those links are in our show notes, along with all of Dean's other links for his socials and everything. So check it all out. And that's it for today. We'll be back with Dean one last time tomorrow to talk about Minute 98. So, Pete, thanks as always.
I thought we were done with it, you guys, but tomorrow, building the team montage. Montage.
Oh, always ready for another montage. Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at truestory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.